Hello, everyone. I'm John Peace with the Rural Route newsletter, and I'm here today with two special guests. Now, one special guest, Mike McGeer. He is running for Virginia Democrat Rural Caucus chair. We've had him on before, and hopefully you've seen some of the videos and stuff. And Mike, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you and let you introduce your special guest that you know quite
Sure.
well.
Yes. And hi, everybody. And so this is my husband, Travers Scott,
Howdy.
and he is a fancy college professor at
A
Emory and Henry.
full liberal converting everyone.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's very frightening. And so Travers and I share a background that we didn't even know when we first met. But I worked in advertising, production, and distribution services, and so I was a pitch man and a salesman, and I sold national campaigns and all the production that went around them for some big old brands. But AT&T Wireless was one of the big ones in the 90s and the early aughts. And weirdly,
I was working at an advertising agency in Seattle, and AT&T Wireless was our main client. So during the day, I was writing the ads, and then they were being shipped to him to do the production work on. We were working on the same material, never met, never talked to each other, didn't know each other, didn't figure it out until years later.
it was a really wild connection. But that's what got both of us were I guess jaded from all of the databases and all of the marketing jargon, and then the actual production of advertising campaigns. So this is what kind of Cindy kind of intuitively figured out. Cindy Green, for who ran for House District 44 here, and she brought me along, on the trip. And so I had the opportunity to apply those old skills to building out a useful campaign with quality materials. And this type of material needs to actually be available to all of our rural candidates. And it's not, it's actually withdrawn from them, and it's made difficult for them. So, it was amazing to be able to work with somebody who is as bold and pure and honest as Cindy Green. But then it was amazing to meet all these other candidates that stood up in counties and districts that were not being represented, that nobody was running against the incumbents. Nobody was
Oh,
running against the Republicans. The state party wouldn't back people and made it very difficult, including the rural county chair, the rural caucus chair, who tried to dissuade Cindy and dissuade Josh Utsi and dissuade a lot of these candidates who stood up from actually doing so. It was like just
Democrats telling Democrats not to run.
I know. I,
what is this?
I
And
One thing
go
we
ahead.
talked briefly a little bit before we started the podcast was
Yeah.
two things we had in common right off the bat when we first met each other. Working with Cindy Green's campaign for delegate was we both had a sales background, salesperson. I was in professional sales for 35 years, various everything from agriculture through finance and insurance services and products. I worked all along the Mid Atlantic, stretched probably to the Midwest, all through the South. So Megaland, what's now Megaland, was my territory that I sold. So, I had to work with these, people, and I'm from Southwest Virginia. One thing, and I've been involved in politics here locally for, 20, 30 years, but I've not been involved in the party that much till recently. And
Yeah.
what amazed me at the
Sorry.
state and national level party, the state was the lack of salespeople. Oh,
Yeah.
you got marketing consultants, you got they do all this.
Will
And also,
burn your money
yes.
so fast.
And
Terrible.
the lack of having sales experience. And also, reason why Doug Mullins and I started working with candidates was most of our candidates, do not come from a sales background. Think about it. Now, Cindy did, and Yvonne did, but most don't. Most of them are educators. Most of them, but when you're running against a incumbent Republican who's a lawyer or a business people, see, they're already salespeople, so that they already
Right.
have this huge
Right.
advantage. So one thing we wanted to do, and this is what your campaign, I'll turn it back over to you, was so good at, was just teaching those sales techniques of how candidates can sell themselves to voters.
Well, and
So
I'm a son of salespeople,
yeah,
right? So my family, which is 100% genetically Appalachian, I mean, it's Western Pennsylvania, Northern West Virginia, and Northeast Ohio. Both my parents are from Stark County,
I'm gonna tell you
Ohio.
one thing. If my papa was alive today, he said, "You country." Okay. You don't want to. Okay.
That's right. You just need to see my truck and you know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
That's
Oh yeah.
I have a picture of his new truck.
I've got to show.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a 1993, anyway.
Well, that's a late model.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's analog and
It's got a really nice chain that holds the door.
That's right. It's got a chain that holds the door on. Every single panel's dented. We actually
So how does it start? How do you start your truck?
with a screwdriver.
Screwdriver. Okay, I'm gonna say screwdriver. I
On
had
the
a Jeep.
solenoid. Yeah, man.
I mean, Jeep used to do that. I lost all the keys, so I just broke the thing, and you just started with a screwdriver.
You turn the key inside, then you jump out with a long screwdriver. You get into the hood, and you touch those two nodes, and boom, it comes on.
Make sure it's out of gear.
It's definitely out of gear. Twin tank, the whole deal. Tall boy, long bed. It's beautiful. It's just beat to shit. So is our friend Crystal Cook Marshall, who's one of my people that I worked with in the Regional Farmer Suicide Prevention Network here in the Southeast, which covered, Texas to Virginia to the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So I networked farm communities and H1s and HBCUs and community organizations all the way down to the grassroots level in order to get suicide prevention material into communities in a successful way. So when people try to tell me that I don't know how to network in a rural space, I'm like, oh, well, you can just bite my butt because, I've been from Lubbock to Dade. It does not matter where I am. I need to network with people and get them to understand the mission, right? And understand what we're trying to deliver and help us. And we couldn't do it ourselves. We needed the locals to be able to deliver this very, very difficult material into very difficult circumstances, to make sure that farmers weren't killing themselves.
I know.
And, and these are small share farmers and independent farmers. And some of them are commodity farmers too, but by virtue of the network, we really, just reached out, and I was able to use a lot of my family background in order to kind of relate to the people that I'm trying to talk about. You can't walk into a room and just start talking about suicide prevention. It takes an enormous amount of preparation and sensitivity, and you need to read the room. And you need to understand how people are feeling while you're talking with them and you're listening to them. So that it just brings me back, to.
I'll have to tell you this quick story.
Bring it.
I was a sales rep in the 90s, covered agriculture. We sold agriculture products. Well, my boss out of Chicago, who was Chicago City, calls me up, says, I need you to fly and I'll meet you there, Bentonville, Arkansas. Well, you know who we're selling. Okay. Walmart.
And they're done that. Yep.
And see, we made deer blocks. Agriculture, cattle blocks and cattle stuff was our main thing, but we made a little sideline. Anyway, I was asking, I said, why do you need me to come over? That's not my territory. I ain't getting nothing for it and stuff. He said, I need somebody to speak hillbilly, buddy. We've done other videos with your wonderful resume on your career, your education, marketing, advertising, working in political field. But today we're going to bring you on here and talk a little bit about another part of your life. It's as rural as you get, but fascinated me. We got started talking about hunting. I used to hunt when I was younger, and my family, my son's a big hunter. And so anyway, I'm going to turn it back over to you guys.
Sure. Well, I did the advertising thing for quite some time. And then I just really didn't enjoy the majority of I was flying all over the country all the time. I was always tired. I was fat. I made very good money, but that wasn't really fulfilling me.
It's a hard life. It is. It's a hard life.
It is. That it was really very stressful. I was unhealthy, and but I'd always cooked. I'd always enjoyed cooking. I learned the majority of my foodways from my great grandmother, Viva Stewart McGirr, and she came to live with us in Massachusetts when we moved to Massachusetts. Both my parents were salespeople in the insurance industry, and my dad was like the VP of national sales for this big group insurance company. They did things like the NFL and the
big stuff.
NHL.
That's big stuff. Yeah,
like big, large. But the thing is, my dad had a D average in high school, right? Because he worked so many different jobs because they were so freaking poor. And he was the oldest boy. And he and his brother John, they drove the milk truck. They, did the roofing, they did framing, they worked for the wealthy family in town who eventually got my dad into Mount Union College in Alliance, not because he had any good grades, but because he had the drive and he had the work ethic. And so when dad graduated, he was already recruited to Travelers Insurance Agency, and they moved us all around the country. So we were the first family unit within our larger families that attained a high school education, attained a college education, and they left. They left Appalachia. None of the rest did. Everybody else stayed. But my mom and dad raised me in Massachusetts, where we were never the McGirrs from Pleasant Street. We were always the McGirrs from somewhere else, whether the people knew that we were from California or knew that we were from Appalachia. We were those people. And, we were we had a beautiful organic farm that my parents put together in their spare time because they had this incredible work ethic, and they wanted us to have the touch to the land that they had grown up with, but in a much nicer space, I guess, than a one-room shack.
Including frog gigging with your mom on the neighbor's property.
Frog
That's right.
gigging. Lord, now that's some mountain talk right there. Frog gig. Yeah.
No,
Their neighbors in Massachusetts loved it when they saw Mike and his mom out there at night with the flashlight and the gig.
I mean, I had the aluminum baseball bat and the flashlight and the waiters, and my mom had the gig and the bag. And, we'd be out there, and, Chief Hutchins actually came out. Our police chief came out to see what was going on because our neighbors called the police. They thought that they thought we were like bandits in the swamp. And it's like, no, we're just gigging frogs. And Chief Hutchins came inside. He's like, "You're going to eat those things?" My mom's like, "Yeah, of course. These are delicious." And, dude sat down and ate with us. And he's like, "Okay, this is good."
That's some good eating. Yeah.
So, I just grew up with all that. And, we'd eat snapping turtle and possum and, anything that we could kill.
Now let me tell you what my great grandmother talked about, and she loved snapping turtle, and I ate the snapping turtle, but she used to laugh and talk about whoever was the first person to ever eat a snapping turtle, that was a hungry person.
They gotta be
starved to death because
a lot of work.
It is delicious.
I know.
There's 7 kinds of meat.
Yep.
7 kinds of meat. Now I'm going to share my screen, and some of your viewers are going to be really, really squeamish about this, and I don't blame them. These are not pretty. Not all these are pretty pictures, but it's reality.
Well, this ain't Animal Channel, Animal Planet pictures, but it's
not.
It's part of growing up in rural America. I mean,
it is.
If you're from rural America, you've seen this already. Yeah,
that's right. Well, there's your headless snapping turtle. So this is outside of Warren Wilson College in North Carolina. About, I don't know what, like 2012 or something like that. But, so I was doing a special, I became a private chef, and so, I worked into the food system. I worked for a lot of billionaires and very famous people, doing this type of vernacular cooking, and all of the products that are here, like I was, teaching a lot of people.
Mike, let me stop you there. Vernacular. Find that. You used a $20 word on me. Yeah.
Local.
Okay, local. Okay. That's what I thought. I just want to make sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, that's what I intend by the use of vernacular. There are different definitions, but, these are foodways that are familiar to people in different areas. And so, if I was down in the low country of South Carolina or North Carolina or, even in Georgia, I'd be cooking in the Gullah Geechee traditions and learning how to make turtle bog and chicken bog and a lot of those simple foods that were produced in the kitchens of the people that were enslaved by the colonialists, right? And then you get up into the mountains, up into Appalachia, and that's what most of this is here. So my great aunt May Fosnight, she taught us how to trap and kill and butcher snapping turtles. And she's the one who coined the phrase in my family, there's 7 kinds of meat on a turtle. And she's right. So that's what I'm kind of teaching these people. I'm just displaying to them, what these different foodways are. Here's, I'm mincing bear meat right here. So this is black bar, and you can see the bounty of all these mushrooms over here and these different stalks and these different ingredients.
Let me throw out this little bit tidbit for viewers that don't know. this goes back to Daniel Boone. If you'll read some of his writing, one of the most cherished wild meats was black bear.
It's
And now I know
delicious.
today people they think about teddy bears, they think about the Smokey the Bear, but no, that was the premier
Right?
meat of wild game.
You
Yeah.
taste it once and it'll change
Yep.
your whole view.
I
It's
mean,
most delicious meat I've ever had.
it
Yes,
was
me too. My son just that's what he
first
wants to
date.
eat, wild. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, I served Travers bear neck on roasted bear neck with maitake mushrooms on our first date. And that one. And then the second date was possum. We'll see some in the future. So this here's turtle that's been cooked in its own fat and duck fat.
Okay.
So, and then this is the Paddington Wellington. So this is the bear Wellington in puff pastry with wild watercress. Oops,
Awesome.
that's a possum. That was what date?
Second date.
Second date. I made purple possum balls, and then this is that bar neck. Here's a squirrel pie. So I worked with these extension agents all over the Southeast, and one of them, I was with him up in Burnsville, North Carolina, and we saw a county plow truck kill this deer. He's like, Danny was the guy's name, and he's like, you want to go get that? And I'm like, hell yeah. So he turned the truck around and we dragged this bear up in there. And then I called Travers and I'm like, you're going to have to meet us midway.
Help us get this deer.
Got to take this dar home so I can butcher it up. And,
You terrified the neighbors by butchering it in our yard.
yeah, in the headlights because there's night.
These teenage kids rented the house next door and they saw him in the
Wow.
driveway butchering that deer.
Now that's a great story.
Sorry,
That's a great story.
like literally, like the guts are falling out as they're pulling in the driveway, and it's like, sorry. But this same extension agent, whenever he would clear feral hogs, he would call me, and he's like, Mike, if you want to meet me midway, I'll meet you. I'm in Simpsonville, so we can meet at the Belk if you want. And so this is in the back of his truck at the Belk. These are a couple of youngins that he very thoughtfully scalded and scraped, and then you can see the wood wedges in the mouth so that it could be open so that we could roast it. This is, I deboned them mostly and made a porchetta, which is an Italian giant sausage, of these little baby delicious hogs. God, that skin was crackling.
So good.
So good. Served them up all over. Here's some squirrel that went into that squirrel pie you saw earlier. Some eggs. This is my great grandma Bava's one skillet breakfast. So it's some bacon in some bacon fat and the dandelion greens.
Okay, so I ask you what the greens are.
Yeah. So these are wild dandelion greens, and there's some ramps in there as well that I grew up eating that people disparaged. Oh, my friend's Yama. Just a lot of, this is some wild boar right here, and that got processed into a big, huge chili. That was delicious. Oh, here's my friend Temple. She's awesome. She is just a relentless advocate for the most humane possible consumption of animals. And that may seem contradictory and crazy to some people, but you actually have to understand it
Let's plug family farms here for a second.
Absolutely.
Dairy farm. I mean, you talk about taking care of animals. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I felt like my family took care of them better than they did me.
Yeah.
But then there's a lifespan and there's a circle of life, and and that's what feeds us. But
we have these,
yeah.
and so I'm totally happy and friends with plenty of vegans and vegetarians.
That's fine. Oh, more power to them. Yeah.
But I'm not going to stop eating goat,
which
is I'm taking apart right here. And here's some nice, delicious vegetables. Some squash blossoms. There's that goat stew. Oh yeah, this was the first delivery of organic compost to a public school in South Carolina. It's a really exciting moment when we were down there. And this is what country is. This is my friend's farm in Barnardsville in North Carolina, and this is us processing a beef, and it's the way that it works. These are the delicious bits that we took out of the middle of it. And these are our dear friends from Cowpens, South Carolina, who live on the Cowpens National Monument, and their families, Sally and Brant and their kids, their families have lived on either side of the Cowpens Monument since before the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
they've been farming that land. She's the director of architecture at Clemson. She's brilliant and wonderful. You guys publish work together.
We wrote 2 articles together, and we, with you, co-taught 3 semesters of a class on farm spaces and agritourism and community gardens and things like that.
Right. And bringing all that local produce into the institutional market, that was my job, is to get farmers to be able to have direct access into like Clemson University's procurement, whereas it had always just been, completely separated. So a lot of these images are from that period of time. This is one of our favorite farms. That's Big Jason Ashley, and this is beef in Abbeville, South Carolina. This field is beautifully green. All the other pastures in the area that were not following his practices looked like moonscapes, hate that guy. Yep. And and then we moved all the way up the food chain from Gig and Frogs up to Wagyu beef. And this is at an extraordinary facility that is producing some of the finest Wagyu 100% full blood beef in the country. And this is in Landrum. Oh, there's that beautiful beef. That's as butchered by Anthony.
Wow, look at that marbling. God.
Yeah.
Right?
This is beyond prime. This is Wagyu beyond prime. And then that's
Groundhog.
that image in there.
That's dinner tomorrow. That's one of our little friends here at our house in Bristol.
He lives underneath it, not for too much longer. But I mean, I've pretty much cooked every type of animal that you can imagine, and some with greater success than others. But when it really comes down to it, it's just understanding where you are, where your food comes from, what the quality of that food is, right? And then how do you prepare it and nourish people, right? That's something that's just built into me. It came from the genes. It came from my family, and so I take a little bit of umbrage when people try to question my credentials.
Wow.
Like I've had county chairs, I've had district chairs actually be like, "Well, Mike, you don't really know about rural spaces in Virginia." I'm like, "Bitch, get in the back."
Hey, Mike, don't feel special. I got to ask what made me qualify. And listen to me. Listen to me. I mean, are you gonna say I don't know rural? I mean, I don't know rural voters. I mean, my goodness.
I have backed my truck into 3-mile long driveways in hollers. I mean, because you need to back in.
Oh, yeah.
And when you don't necessarily know who you're going to be talking to, and you're getting out there in their space, and you're invading their cove or their holler, whatever you happen to call it in your particular area, you got to respect that. And you need to be ready to run, because you might need to. And I have. It's like, you're not going to make friends in every single spot where you're going out there and you're talking about difficult subjects, even if you're trying to buy things from them, because, I know that Miss Jackie has a damn good squirrel game out there in Canton, North Carolina, but I'm not going to pull in and just leave my truck pointed in. Like, no, I'm getting in there because these people have guns and they like to use them. And I appreciate that, but I also respect it,
I'm writing a future article talking about the relationship difference in rural America with guns versus urban. And that's the whole divide. Okay. It is. It's where you're coming from. Now, we all don't
We're not anti-gun. We're anti-murder.
Now, let me tell you what I'm for. And we preach this in candidate training. I'm all for 100% gun safety. I mean, and my kids and my grandkids.
Gun safety. You need a damn gun lock.
Yep.
You got to train your kids when you're little. I know I learned gun safety when I was like 5 years old, man.
Oh, I know. Well,
it's like, and seeing people who don't understand that carrying weapons around, you're like, you're a liability to your own community.
And let me tell you, it don't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. You don't want guns in people in criminal hands. You don't want them in mentally unstable hands. We all want the same thing. And and I want my schools safe. I don't care how we get there. I don't care. I mean, see, sometimes we get too fixated on just one option. I want them all. Whether it be resource officer, gun control as far as keeping them out of unstable hands. But anyway, that's a different subject. We'll talk about that.
But it's real, and it's related to a lot of these foods. It's like when you're eating animals, you're killing them. And so how are you doing that? What is the method, right? And what is the quality of that method? And that matters to me. I'm not going to tell somebody that they can't go out there and gig frogs,
Right.
like my mom and I did. But I am going to be concerned about, how is their food safe? Like, where are you gigging those frogs? What's that water that you've got them in?
All the
Where
water,
are you taking them from?
yeah. Let me tell you what, yeah, that's a big concern. Mike, I'm gonna bring up something you said in a video that I was editing the other day, talking about, and this is part of you going for chair of Rural Caucus,
Yeah,
and in these rural spaces about listening first. And Doug Mullins have always said this in his campaign train. He's won 9 elections in Megaland. Okay. He said the only issue that matters that matters is the one that voter in front of you cares about.
that's right.
And see, a lot of times we as Democrats, we want to push our issues instead of listening and finding out what that rural voter's issue is.
It's a failure.
Yeah.
And it needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
And the idea, and I'm going to have an interview with Josh Stanfield whenever he calls, but he already wrote, and he's like, I really want to hear you talk about what you feel Rural Caucus ought to be doing, and what is your vision for it. I'm like, well, first of all, my vision for it is listening, is hearing the words and the tone and the issues directly from the people in these spaces that Rural Caucus ought to be serving, not pushing things at them. They need to listen. They need to gather information. We need to become a data center. We need to document all of these conversations. We need to clarify what the real issues are in each one of the districts, because it's very different in HD 44 than it is in HD 51.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You've got to be responding to people, and that means that you need to listen. What the party doesn't currently have is that feedback channel, right? And that's what the Rural Caucus needs to be. The Rural Caucus isn't created and shouldn't be about a social club, about a pay to play, about fees. It
Or
needs to be bringing
event
the
planning
resource.
or events.
Oh golly, like $26,000 for a weekend at Natural Bridge. Are you biting my butt or what? Like, what came out of that meeting? What came out of that session? What I've heard from a lot of the people who actually did go and pay the $250 fee that they're claiming as a fundraiser. It's not a fundraiser. You're charging people a fee to come to your event. I know candidates who didn't have enough money to pay for the hotel room that the current chair chased out of the room. Like, you can't be here. You haven't paid. And it's like, they drove the entire way to get to Natural Bridge to get to your damn event and said, hey, I don't have the money to pay for your hotel, but I'll sleep in my car. This is a real story.
Wow.
This was told to me by one of the candidates that ran in the 27 value pack. This is ridiculous. So yeah, what's my vision? It needs to be a listening session. It needs to be able to deliver true data-backed advice and advising to the state steering committee. That's the reason for these 4 meetings every year, right? It's not that you can go out there and be like, "Ooh, look at my title. Isn't this so cool? I have this title for this voluntary and incredibly supposedly demanding, position in the state." But where's the real feedback? If you don't know how to ask the questions, and you don't have the demeanor to listen to the differing voices and to dispassionately bring that, or passionately bring that to the table, then you're not doing your job. And that
Well,
ain't happening.
I'm glad you brought talking about asking the wrong question in our candidate training. I'll send you some more information. Doug and I talk about, as Democrats, you'll see them spend millions of dollars on surveys, on research about what issues voters care about. Okay. But that's the wrong question. You need to be asking, who do voters vote for? And so you'll get a totally different response. And, I went to college
Bingo.
and took a lot of statistics. I had a math scholarship and advanced statistics. And let me tell you, it's all about asking the right question.
Mhm.
Because, yeah, issues are important. Yes, they are. But when you look at the research on who rural voters vote for, your messaging becomes totally different.
Absolutely.
And
And
yeah,
to that point, John, one of the things that we experienced was, the current chair of the Washington County Democrats is extremely arrogant and insulted my candidate on a constant basis, insulted her to me as I was going out and trying to get him to actually give us the resources, write us the check to put up a couple more of these billboards. This bozo then hired this group, this outside consultant, paid $5,100 for 3 negative billboards in my district, in Cindy's district, right? Against our wishes. And he put up these, and they're ham-fisted. They're ridiculous. If I had the patience, I would go and share screen again and show it to you. But they're just revolting, these highlighter yellow and black ads that look like they were produced in what, like 1988?
Mike, and the issue they were talking about was an issue in my district, not necessarily yours.
That's right.
See, that's the whole point. If you listen to us, yeah, they were in the wrong. They were in the wrong counties. Them billboards should have been in Wise-Dixon County, County in particular.
He could have, if he had simply given the money to Josh Utsi, or given the money over to another county, I wouldn't have been so irate about it. But instead, he put 3 piece of garbage billboards up. He paid $5,100 premium for it. They only cost $950 a pop. So the consultant pocketed the balance of that money. Right? It pocketed like $2,000. Like, who does in a $5,000 bot? Like, who does that? Somebody who is irresponsible, who is arrogant, and who doesn't want to hear it. And actually, I kind of feel like he did it to spite Cindy in order to put these negative ads up that we told him we didn't want in our district, right? Right next to the positive ads that we put up that got us $500,000 eyeballs weekly, right? He put them up right next to them. Like, what a jerk. Inside the party? Like, who does this kind of thing? It's just, it's incredible. So now, we're asking people to run against them during the reorganization, which is why I'm running for Rural Caucus chair, which is why so many of our friends are going to run and compete for Bristol County Democrats, for Russell County Democrats, for Washington County Democrats. And a lot of our friends across the 27 value pack are doing the same in their benches, right? They're setting up new benches to compete with the people who are in these voluntary capacities, holding back Democratic choices and Democratic voices that are coming out of rural, right? I'm tired of this painful East Coast elitism permeating all the way across the Commonwealth and all across the country. It's absolutely unimaginable why the Democrats are not embracing labor. Like, the UMWA is one of the most amazing organizations on the planet. They birthed organized labor. They birthed the AFL-CIO, right? They created the 5-day work week. They created weekends. They created child labor laws, healthcare,
Family Leave Act. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's like these are people that we should be championing. That should be absolutely adored and put up on the platform to speak, because they literally sent their families to die for their jobs, for their communities. These people are some of the most gracious and generous out of now. Most of them have been pulled out of the middle class and been pushed into the lower class because they've destroyed the industries without replacing the industry that they need, right? We need to bring those types of resources. We need to bring housing manufacturing. We need to bring all the things that need to be happening in our rural spaces in Virginia. And I think that it's going to be a movement across all of Appalachia, frankly, as we start to penetrate this machine that has been built to keep rural voices out of the equation. We've got to bring them back in. And that's what Rural Caucus is going to be under my leadership.
Well, Mike, on that final note, I told you I'd keep y'all about 30 minutes. Appreciate y'all being on the show. We'll have some more and stuff. Made me awful hungry. I'm thinking of a lot of food right now, a lot of and everything, but appreciate it. Both of you, fellas. Nice to meet you, Travers. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, great to have these conversations, and let's just keep going.
Sure will. Thank you.
All right, sir.